it always blows me away. Ever since we started this, when I get to do this again, because I come out of these just learning something. I come out just inspired, and I'm so excited to do this today. You flew in from Florida to be here, Miss Tara Camp. Didn't you have better things to do?
Not particularly.
Not particularly. Okay. Well, I'm excited that the world gets to have an in on your life and how you think. And as you may know or maybe not know, that the podcast starts with sort of a theme, like a word or a theme that I'm excited to showcase you in that light. It could be a single word, it could be a phrase, but the one that I really drilled down on, that I think is going to show itself why during our conversation, is the idea of know thyself. Self-discovery. Who am I? What am I all about? What am I capable of? How does it all work? That the big questions in life, I think that some people really dig into those and many don't. But I'm going to make a case for the value of that through your story. At least I want that to be part of it. And so under the heading of know thyself, starting there, if you were to go back, Tara, and talk about your childhood in Georgia and the hardwiring that was coming your way, I mean, what you were learning, how you and your beliefs were formed, the environments around you, what did the world look like in those raising years? I want to start there.
Excellent. Well, thank you for having me, and I'm excited to be here. Georgia. Wow, that was a couple chapters ago, and it was kind of a bleak chapter. It was boring and depressing, and yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Elaborate on that. You don't hear many, this was my childhood, boring and depressing.
Yeah, it was boring and depressing. I was lost. I was lost as a child. Didn't have any sense of knowing myself, and I struggled. I struggled with being around people, being comfortable in my own skin, and that opened the door to exploration into speed, weed, alcohol, and psychedelics.
Isn't that like a 4-part harmony in some lives?
But not all at once.
Okay, I'm just curious. Yeah, when you say I think everybody has a different definition, and maybe a different how they would define it for their own life. So maybe it's very specific. But when you say lost, what's the opposite of lost? Found, or I know where I am. What contributed to a feeling of lost? What puts one off balance, feeling lost?
Wow. I would say now, just not having a center point or not knowing what that center point was. And I think that center point gets covered up from negative emotions, limiting beliefs, programming that is different than our natural innate programming of love, joy, peace, happiness.
Which you're saying is natural and innate?
I am, yeah.
Okay, I'm building a framework around this talk, because if I were to say, what do you see kind of out there naturally, those adjectives don't come to mind. I think they're achievable. I think that certain people have figured out how to grasp those things, but I don't think they're the default for many people in their lives. Matter of fact, it seems that wherever I look, it seems like I see struggle. I see frustration. I see lost. And so to say that this is the more natural state of being. That's an interesting conversation. So here we go, right? Tell me about mom, dad, siblings. What did that look like in that time frame? What did those relationships look like?
Well, I had two amazing, very young parents and a genius brother. And they did the best they could. They were young. We were very poor growing up. Well, I say very poor. They were very poor growing up. And what they did for me was provide over and above what they had. And they went from having nothing and being no one to being very successful entrepreneurs and supportive parents in every respect. And yeah, they did the best they could. And I owe them kind of my success in life, because I know that when I came into this life, I feel like I chose them and to lead me to where I am today.
Another interesting concept that, again, I'm excited to hear that this idea of you chose them. Child chooses parents. You'll have to walk me through that. Which is why these podcasts are so awesome to me, because it's thinking the thoughts you've never thought, thinking on things that you've never contemplated, even considered. To me, that's where growth happens. That's where your swath of possibility gets wider when you're open to that. So we'll pick up on that too later. God, I better start taking notes, right? I wanted to ask about your brother. You described him as a genius, older, younger?
3 years older.
3 years older. Was there a shadow of being the next in line behind this genius that you felt?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I felt there were expectations to me, for me to follow in his footsteps, to be just as smart, just as ambitious. And I was far from that. And because he was who he was, with those natural talents, I rebelled. Yeah, I just rebelled. And, I guess I labeled myself a black sheep. And, rebelled in most ways.
Back to the theme, know thyself. Pressure to be somebody else rarely works out well. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
And whether it's an all-star genius brother, or why can't you be more like so-and-so or so-and-so? I mean, this usually doesn't work out well. Not that we shouldn't look at people and say, wow, they have a quality there that I really admire. I want to see if I can unearth that in my own life. I mean, that's different. But when you're actually trying to almost forcibly be somebody else, I don't know how that ever works out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never really forced myself, but I felt the pressure.
Right.
And of course, my parents had expectations and wants and desires of me, and I just blew them off and did my own thing, and eventually ended up leaving home at an early age.
And where'd you head?
Jackson Hole.
Jackson Hole, and here from at Georgia to Jackson Hole. What did you just color? What part of the map is opposite, and then throw a dart at that? Is that what you did?
Pretty much. Well, my dad took me to Steamboat Springs sometime around 20, and I had never experienced snow or snowboarding, and I fell in love. And I don't even know why. I literally was bruised inside and out, places that you would never expect to have bruises from snowboarding. Had to pick myself up out of bed. Felt like I broke ribs, but I loved it. And before we left, I saw help wanted signs in the window. And I was like, you know what? I can get a job here. And that's all she wrote. I went home, packed my car, quit my third year in college, and went to Jackson Hole. I was looking for the most challenging mountain. I don't know why.
Brand
something
new,
in my blood.
brand new snowboarder looks for most challenging
I know,
Martin
right?
to bruise more than she's already bruised. Yeah. Why not? Okay. So again, can't hear anything that doesn't underscore a piece of philosophy. It's the what the hell philosophy. Like 2 days from now, you could be on a beach in Thailand fishing for a fish you've never heard of before. It's not like insurmountable to pack up and go and to completely change your world, change your environment. And yet, why is that so rare to hear that kind of story? I'm out of here. I'm changing everything right now.
Right? I mean, that's how I think.
Right. But I think it's rare.
Yeah.
I think we get caught in that's too much work.
Or I can't afford it, or it's just impossible. And I think we're able to do more of that when we're younger. It's easier, again, because I feel like we're closer to that innate joy and intuition that's typically leading us. And then as we grow older and become more programmed, it's harder. It's harder to get out of the box, out of the programming that's laying over our joy, our happiness, our peace.
You remember these movies where everybody works in a factory and all the friends are together working in the factory, and somebody has the courage to break out and they say, I'm quitting my factory job and I'm going to here, and they like throw a party for them. It's like you're getting out of jail or something,
Right.
And it sounds that, from lost to found is a radical step. So Jackson Hole. And in Jackson is your love for snowboarding. This also was an entree to another crazy endeavor, am I right? With the mountain biking, the downhill racing of mountain bikes.
Yeah.
So the bruising of snowboarding wasn't enough?
Well, okay, so I went from Georgia. I went from like alcohol and drugs or being pretty addicted to, or what I would say addicted. It was problematic. I basically needed it to feel natural hanging out in any realm, really. That was how I fit in. That's how I became comfortable in an uncomfortable situation. And so I went from alcohol, drugs to addicted to snowboarding. And that lasted 4 or 5 years. Well, I mean, it lasted longer than that. But what happened in the summer was that downhill mountain biking became popular. And I created a downhill mountain bike team with a number of ladies. And we all got downhill bikes and got to it. We were schooling the boys, showing up at all the races with kegs of beer and pizza that were given to us from local sponsors. It was a good time.
And I don't know that anybody, if you've never seen downhill mountain biking, if you just want to, kind of flinch and go, oh, that had to hurt, just watch a few videos of it. But I've been at Whistler, BC before during a thing called Crankworks, where the ambulances are lined up like valet at the bottom of the hill. They're just like Priuses at the airport. They're just waiting to be called up the hill, pick up the body, get off the hill, next pulls up. A lineup of ambulances when the downhill mountain biking event is going on. It's just broken bones left and right. Yeah. But there's something about this speed and adrenaline and the physicality and the outdoors. What is it about the snowboarding and the mountain biking that has drawn you?
I think it's the chemical reaction that it creates in my body. And I think there's a book that talks about this, is that the natural chemicals in our body help to raise our vibration and to increase our brain power. And what I know about energy is that, that's ideal. When we exercise regularly, we're getting high on life from our own supply. We're getting high on our own supply. And
the chemicals that are activated.
Yeah.
Which ones?
All of them.
Everything.
all of them at that point, but there are certain things that produce different chemicals. So there's pushing the threshold, there's pushing the heart rate and the pain threshold. So each
Reaction.
yeah, like each reaction or different things release different chemicals. And I think with downhill mountain biking, snowboarding, it's similar to running, and you're hitting all those buttons at once. And I think when you do it regularly, your body just starts producing more and more and more, and then you become more sensitive to it until it's your waking state. And that, I believe, is part of coming back to that natural state, so that you're high on light all the time.
Yeah, I've never thought about the crazy stuff. I've done some crazy stuff similar with, outdoor activity, and never thought about it from what's happening to give you that feel that's unexplainable, right? Of being in the elements, pushing yourself in every way. Yeah, there's something about that, no question. Wow. And Jackson then took you to the next crazy departure, which this is where I think, where at least who Tara is and what she's about, I got a good look at this, because you migrated from there and ended up in Bellingham, Washington. Again, opposite of Jackson to Bellingham, and got focused on the world of real estate. Walk me through the steps that got you there.
Wow. It was around age 30, Saturn return, which I'm sure you know nothing about.
No. As in Saturn, as in
the planet
is coming back from, where was Saturn? Did it take us a sabbatical or something?
kind of. Okay. So when it comes back around at age 30 in your chart, it has this pull on you to like get fucking serious.
Is that right? Okay.
And I felt that pull. It was a very powerful pull. And so I think I was 29, 30, and I was like, oh shit, I want to retire in 5 years.
Yeah, I better do something besides crash my mountain bike. Right. Wow.
Yeah. So I just had this like innate pull
from Saturn.
Partially. But real estate is also in my astrological chart. I know, again, nothing you know anything about, probably. Sorry for assuming that you don't.
There's a real estate planet. thought Earth was the
yes,
real estate
right?
planet.
It's the planet you live on.
Right there, thank God. I don't have the energy to go much further.
So anyway, I just had this like, I don't know, this pull to real estate. Oh, because I was essentially like mountain biking 4 hours a day, or snowboarding 4 hours a day, and then doing massage for the other half of the day. So I was like, damn, I need a break. I need a break physically, and I want to use my brain. So, you know, the opposite ends of the pendulum. So like I swung from like not really using my brain a whole lot to, I want to actually do something. I want to feel smart. And so I dove in head first, took some investment classes, and then became a realtor specializing in short sales as a means to an end to start flipping and buying and holding.
And again, took some business investment classes, but dialed into a very specific skill set. Brokering short sales is, wow, how specific can you get? Was it the time frame of the economy when you started doing that? There were a lot of short sales. Was it an opportunistic, like I see a niche here that I can fill to make a lot of money? Or what got you from business type school and investment school into that?
So I had all intentions to just invest. And then I moved to Washington State, knew nothing about excise tax, and didn't really see the opportunity to invest. Not to mention my credit was shot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I became a realtor as a means to an end, and it worked.
Mm-hmm. Roughly what year? Where was the economy at?
It was 2008 when I became a realtor. Yeah.
Okay, so there was a lot of short sales happening in the marketplace for sure. Matter of fact, most everything that was actually closing seems to be a short sale during that time.
Yeah.
Crazy. And so this idea, though, this intuition around becoming an investor, becoming someone who wasn't just working the service side of the equation, the brokerage side, but actually bought the real estate. Where did that come from? Was that something you saw modeled? Was that your parents? Was that somebody else? Or was it just guts said that's... Did Saturn tell you to do that?
Yes. I think just my my entrepreneur, the entrepreneur side of me saw it as more fitting than actually being a realtor or anything else. Yeah, I guess it was more like intuitive. Like I said, it's in my chart.
Okay. So did your chart walk you through your first acquisition?
As like purchasing a house?
Yeah, purchasing a house or a building.
Sorry, wait, what was the question?
Your chart. Did it show you how to do that? Tell me about your first deal. Tell me about your first deal.
What was my first deal?
How did it go together?
I'm trying to remember what my first deal was. So basically, I'd been doing short sales for a couple of years and just working my ass off as a realtor, and also buying or finding properties for other flippers, my clients, and they were just getting such good deals. And I one day just got sick and tired of it.
I want a good deal.
Exactly. I was like, okay, wait, I told you what to offer. And then I actually told you what to do to the house. And then I actually sold it for you and you made all the money. I was like, And so that's when I just started putting in offers myself. My first deal, I think it was nope, actually it wasn't. It was just something on the MLS, but I lowballed them because that was my nature. I always encouraged that. And I just put in an offer and forgot about it. And I think a week later, a deal that had previously gone pending on it fell through, and I got a call, and it was mine. Closed it really quickly, and
Single family house.
Yep, single family house. I think I put about 25 into it and then just turned it into a rental.
So somewhere along this chapter, right in about here, you had a few properties. We met somehow. I don't remember, but I do remember that led to you going to Power Players. And the toolbox of Power Players is quite different than 20 or 30% down and get a bank loan. You're in it for the smartness. So did that change the way you thought about acquisitions?
Oh, absolutely. It spoke to my soul.
I had the privilege of being a part of a chapter of acquisitions and watching you really make a run at it. And so these are somewhat rhetorical questions, but you built a very significant portfolio fairly quickly. And yeah, there was a lot of opportunity flying around given the fallout of 2008 and values were 2010, 11. And it's like, well, okay, they seem to be starting to move upward. And boy, if you bought a lot of real estate in 2009, 10, 11 and just hung on for a while, you'd be pretty good. But structuring them correctly too. What kind of projects? What was the goal? What was the end? Because it seemed as though this was never like, I want to do this forever. Matter of fact, there was a very specific time frame to say, by here, I want to make a transition. Walk me through that.
My goals were very lofty, probably somewhat unrealistic, which is kind of my nature. But I was very money driven then. I was very money driven, and becoming a realtor, I lost sight of why I started doing it. I just got too busy, and so I did at one point see that I was just working way too much and creating a monster, and so I started transitioning out of listing and selling short sales, or even representing buyers, to buying more, and did some flips, and there was always a good profit there. And at one point you asked me the question, Tara, if money weren't a concern, what would you be doing? And I thought I was happy and I was doing exactly what I wanted to always be doing. And I was a little pissed off. I was a little pissed off by the question, like, what the hell do you mean? What would I be doing? I'm happy.
Right.
And but I did. I explored that. I took time off and explored, and it's made all the difference.
I believe that real estate, for most people, the value of it could and actually should be a means to an end. I think people stay with it forever because it just gets fairly easy. And that's the wrong reason to stay with it forever. And so I think the discontent part of your nature, that I'm here to do something, but then there is something else. That really was the question. Seeing these radical shifts in chapters, as you describe them, right? Chaptered here, then Jackson's a chapter, then here's a chapter. It's like, of course, the obvious question is, I didn't really know about Saturn then, but, when is the next chapter going to unfold? But it always felt to me that there was the next chapter. And so there was where the question came from. In other words, when's enough enough? What are you going to do when money is no longer an issue? Let's start thinking about it, because you're getting probably pretty close, and so I felt like that's the right question for you. And evidently it got you thinking. So when about did the next chapter, because it's really what I want to focus on, when about did this next chapter happen? I think I could guess about the year, but
It took a couple years. Like it was the chapter shifted, but I still hung on to real estate for a while. I moved to the Bay Area, and I farmed there, sent out bird letters, and in my heart I just knew it wasn't going to happen. It wasn't right, and but I still did it because I'm stubborn. And we typically hang on longer than what's good for us.
So there was this transition chapter almost out of real estate.
Yeah. I started doing real estate analytics for a firm in San Francisco, and that was fun. I got to ride my bike. Got to ride my bike into the city and then work for them, and they paid me well, and it was a hoot. The team was fun, and so it was something different. And at that time, I had started to dive into personal development, and so that was the next chapter: personal development, like pretty heavy. And I just felt something shifting. Something shifting inside of me. I went from not feeling any emotion, which when I was younger, I was just numb. Basically until I was 30 or even 35, I felt numb. I took antidepressants when I was younger, was diagnosed as bipolar. They tried to put me on lithium, and I was like, hell no, I'm already numb. Why would I take anything stronger? And I just intuitively knew, like, I needed to get busy living. That was what was going on. Like, I didn't know how to put words to it, but my body knew, and that's what snowboarding did for me. It got me busy living rather than just sitting around doing nothing, which I've never really been good at.
Right. Wow. I'm fascinated as much as anything on the in life. I'm fascinated at the route that sometimes gets you to where it all comes together. It seems so circuitous sometimes, and yet it all makes sense when you sort of look at it in building block kind of stages. So this transition out of real estate chapter, this was the chapter of know thyself. Here we go. We're off on an adventure. And what about yourself has this last chapter? Give me a few big rocks of what you've discovered about you and how you approach the world now versus every time leading up to this. That's a big question.
I know.
So take it any direction you want to go.
Well, so know thyself. It has a bunch of different components, and there's the knowing of yourself, where you know what you like and know what you dislike, and I don't necessarily want to say that it's about following just what you like and staying away from what you dislike, because I feel like that's such a growth opportunity. But it's kind of like knowing your boundaries. Like, this works for me, this doesn't work for me. But being open to trying different things that you might not know that you like, or even doing things that you don't like to get a different perspective. It helps, it helps us. It's helped me to relate to people. So it's kind of like knowing, and then taking it to another level. It's knowing the self, the lower self, those lower self tendencies, opposed to the higher self tendencies.
Explain that.
Higher self tendencies like living from the heart, doing the right thing.
Your best self
Being
tendencies.
Your best self, exactly.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, not from a judgmental standpoint, but something from the standpoint of like a different nature, a different beingness, being centered. And it's about moving the energy from like the lower aspects of our being, of our energy field, to the higher aspects. So it's a growing from maybe pursuing money just for the purpose of pursuing money to spend it, to being purposeful and maybe spending the money in a way that is philanthropic or more heart-centered, rather than just the lower nature of just having money to have money. Or even eating to nourish the body rather than just to be full or to satiate an emotion or a thought, or even to like eat to create or recreate an experience.
So this shifting of energy, and I'm probably getting the phrases wrong, but this is the way I just heard it, from the sort of the lower self to a much higher esteemed, valuable self. The shifting of that is in the intentionality around what you're doing.
Yeah, the intentionality and purpose. Like, what's the purpose of what I'm eating? What is the purpose of what I'm doing? And then just doing everything with that in mind.
So the dispersion of a lower self energy to put it all in the right place, this upper self, is, I'm trying to get my head around this, but it's an awareness that what I'm doing here has a higher purpose, or something well thought out that I'm behind completely, versus just sort of autopilot doing it for the hell of it.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily have to be well thought out. It's just having that awareness, like bringing awareness to everything. Like, why am I doing this? What is the true intention of what I'm doing? Yeah.
Okay, so as long as I'm kind of digging here in the lower self category, and this has come from a lot of discussions that we've had and some books that you've recommended that I read, which I think are amazing. it could go as far back as you would want to go back, I suppose. But traumatic pieces of your life, difficult pieces of your life, unresolved conflict, trauma of all shapes and sizes. The idea that has been thrown out there is that these don't just go away, that they actually stay with you until properly dealt with. Now that sounds so surface, and I know everybody's laughing like, duh, doesn't everybody sort of know that? Well, okay, I don't know that we do. I've sort of been raised that shit happens, deal with it, and move on, period. Well, the deal with it part is mostly just forget it and move on. It's not really dealing with it. It's just move on. That concept sort of flies in the face of this negative emotion and energy being in conflict with your best self. Is that a decent way of putting it?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just say across the board, we all have negative emotions and energy around something. I can't imagine anybody who doesn't. Now, maybe somebody's really worked hard to just clear the slate, but it seems like the more I think about it, the longer the list gets. And so the idea of ridding yourself of that and making room, kind of get rid of the bad and make room for the good, it's almost like time management. Don't do all this stupid shit and do things that matter, and you'd be better off, right? Okay, that makes sense to me, but it always comes back to the how. How do you release something? How do you let it go? And you come at this from a perspective that's not necessarily like psychotherapy. It's seems different.
Yeah, psychotherapy never worked for me when I was younger. I think I went to the psychiatrist a couple times, and I was like, yeah, talking about it doesn't work. Doesn't work for me. It seemed to just make it worse. It's like digging it up. And then I noticed, like, if I would have a conversation with someone around something that was bothering me, it was just like venting to them, and again, creating more of a problem. Like I was like reliving it, and then they know. So then they create this vision or perception, and I feel like it's kind of holds you in the box.
Right, like a loop almost.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to forget this and move on, and now
everybody knows about it.
It's alive, and everybody knows about it. Right.
Yeah. And it's fine. There's nothing wrong with psychotherapy if it's working. And there are easy processes that can help to release negative emotions very easily. And that's what I've been utilizing for the last 5 to 10 years.
And define, because again, I'm really new at all this, but I'm intrigued. Define the energy.
So,
like I know we're all electrical, we're all energy. We're really not even connected, right? We're all just a bunch of pixels that kind of stay close. Is that kind of it?
We're very connected.
Okay.
Very connected, very energetic. Everything's energy. So going back to like the lower self aspects or the lower chakras, when we have a lot of baggage or negative emotions, negativity, it's harder to do the right thing. And even just saying affirmations over and over, a lot of people don't have success with that because the baggage is still there, and so it's harder to live in those higher aspect realms and to take action because the old habit and the old habit is kind of held in by the belief, but also the negative emotion, and so. And so when we release those negative emotions, the negativity, we can start to feel energy more. And that helps to kind of awaken the higher self aspects And it makes it a hell of a lot easier to take action in the direction of your dreams, in the direction of those higher self aspects, to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is it as simple as saying, and I'm noticing your little outfit with the heart shirt, I want to point that out, but it made me think, is it as simple as a replacing of anger with love or anger with joy? Is that the transition that's happening?
That can work. And I think that happened with me through exercise, of just completely immersing myself. I mean, I would go out on the mountain 4 hours on average every single day. And when I wasn't doing it, I wanted to be doing it. And what I've learned is that a positive emotion can override a negative emotion. And most people don't have 4 hours out of the day every day of the week to rewire themselves to exercise. So that is one way, or you can just kind of just pull out the negative emotion and it's gone.
Or a combination of both?
Or
maybe?
a combination of both. That's what I advocate for.
And so from a distance, but if somebody were to look at your life right now, and, let's say they were able to spend a couple of weeks with you and just sort of watch Tara in action, I think what they would see is disciplines of these things get done daily, right? Okay, pause there. What are some of those? I can imagine a few: eating correctly, certain amount of exercise, certain amount of just sort of stillness and thought, and keep going. Am I right on some of those?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been getting up for sunrise walks or hikes, something of that nature, for a long time. And
Sunrise. Wow.
Yeah, there's something magical about early morning, seeing the sunrise, and I used to, well, not used to, I still can, but when I first started to wake up, I could feel the sunset and the sunrise, and it was like a cocktail. It's like a cocktail without a cocktail, like nature's cocktail. And so that anchored me to the habit of getting up early and then seeing the sunset, because I was just like, hell yeah, I can feel that. Like, why wouldn't I do it? And since some of that passion is dissipated, but I still love it. I still enjoy it, and I still do it because it starts my day in the right way. And if I don't exercise early, then I can just feel it. It's like, it doesn't affect me as much as it used to. Like, I think I've gone 3 days without exercising from being here. But before, it was like I needed it. It was crucial. But if I don't do it early in the morning and I wait to do it later, I can feel like the angst building up in my body, and I can feel the pressure of like, oh, if I don't do it, then I'm going to feel guilty. And then if I don't do it, I do feel guilty. And I can feel that energy of letting myself down, of doing something that I said I was going to do that I didn't do. Not to mention that I didn't work off what I needed to work off in the form of like mental or emotional stuff.
What about you talk about exercise, and maybe the morning walk is as much exercise as it's a mental clearing? Is it mental exercise to just be quiet by yourself and your thought?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like I love physical exercise, and I definitely recommend it. And I believe, well, for me, exercising started out as like meditation in motion. I didn't realize that that's what was happening, but that's what was happening. But then I did start sitting down and meditating. And it's a lot easier if you exercise first and then you meditate. But I also do breath work. It's a very simple breath work. And it helps to connect you to the source inside of you, the source outside of you.
Okay, what does breath work mean?
Well, to me, it's chanting.
Okay.
So I go through like a very simplistic sounds that you can feel immediately, the energy within, and outside coming in.
And so it's a controlled effort.
Yeah. Yeah, and it just helps to move the energy from down below up, and then it's kind of like saying, "Hey, God, Source, Universe, I'm calling you. Can you plug me in a little bit stronger?" And so each time you do that, you become more and more energized, and that connection gets stronger and stronger. It's like dialing up God.
I like it. So God, source, energy kind of go in the same sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's all the same to me.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And the when you're moving this all upward, has it caused different? Talk about sort of the lower self, the upper self. Is the endeavor of your day? Does it seem radically different now after this shift than back, let's say, when you were in the short sale real estate brokerage business?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, because it just the energy that you put out seems so positive and so grateful and so focused as compared to, I don't know, the grind of a lot of deals in escrow and, a lot of frustrating moving parts that don't always work right. And this is I'm used to that conversation with real estate entrepreneurs, but I think what I'm hearing you say is that there's a way to approach anything you do with this sort of peace and energy in your upper part. Is that,
I love it.
Because that
you
to me is really, you would almost think, oh boy, I got to get intense and really grind on this to get things done back here. But you're actually getting way more done with more purpose and clarity this way.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's just fun. Like I'm high on light. Like it's like having a cocktail, but not having a cocktail. It's very clean. It's very surreal in a way. And it's easy to fall in love with everyone. Which my discernment has gotten a lot better.
Right.
Because Source is like, I can feel like when my discernment gets a little bit iffy, it's like, nope, I get a little bit sober until the more I can manage and be discerning and living responsibly, I guess, then I'm given more. So I can be like out doing errands, blissed out and going, whoo, I just want to like sit down and meditate. But then I'm like, nope, I got a lot of shit to do. So I can still do a hell of a lot. And I do, I haven't really slowed down very much. And it can still be stressful. Like I can still be like, ooh, I put too much on my plate again. And so it's always learning, like knowing thyself. Okay, how much can I do and be at my best without going over the edge of trying to put too much on my plate? Because purpose is love is my highest value. Purpose is right behind it. So I want to be of service in the highest regard, but sometimes that bites me in the ass.
So there's a monitoring going on constantly.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that is like everything's awareness. So the more we can be aware, the more we can feel that awareness. And that is the love, that is the joy, that is the peace. That is who we are at the core of who we are. That's our essence.
I think this is just, I'm going back to the question in my mind of this lower and upper self and motivations. They say there's only two great motivators. One is fear and one is love. Fear and passion, the opposites, they both motivate, but one is not sustainable. Pretty soon you just get tired of being fearful, right? You get tired of just the grinding and you say, forget it. But the other is sustainable. It moves forward. It brings energy to the table to keep moving forward. And so it seems consistent with this idea upward and outward of life versus stuck in sameness. And those are my own ways of trying to figure this out, that it all seems to make sense in my mind, that that loop that sameness feels like. It's just like this loop that never quits. Like, oh my God, stop it.
I know it sucks.
Yeah.
Like, it's wild, and it sucks, and it sucks the life out of people. And it's wild that people are inclined to feel comfortable there, because I've never felt comfortable there.
Yeah.
And and I was stuck a lot. Like, I've gone from each chapter has brought me, to a higher dimension, and it's wild to look back, because I used to be so afraid. I used to be so intimidated, insecure, and I just have to give credit to Source, because like the more work that I've done on myself through releasing the negative emotions and the limiting beliefs and growing outside of my comfort zone, the more it's given me assurance in every situation. Like, anything can pretty much happen, and it doesn't really faze me, because I've got that connection of the peace, the love, the joy that is from me partnering with Source.
So tie this into a couple other great thinkers, people who are doing great things, and they're thinking things out, and they're challenging the world of possibility left and right. There's a couple names that are flying around out there in pretty big form right now, that are kind of in the same big bucket. Very different, but the same bucket, that somehow there's a power going on that we've got to recognize. And I'm fascinated by these things: mind and energy and power. But one of the names that has come up a lot lately in my world is Wim Hof. You undoubtedly know that name.
I do, but I'm not super familiar with his work, but I know he does the cold plunges.
Yeah.
And
seems as though the elements that he puts his body in are completely controlled by the mind, and it has no effect on his body, the fact that he's going into ice water for unending times, right? He's able to control all the factors. Joe Dispenza, another name that has come up a lot lately, with similar ideas that we have the ability within our mind to radically change what happens next physically. Yeah. Do you sign up for the thought that our mind has those abilities?
yes, absolutely. For the last couple of years, I've done like cold plunge showers. Just, I'll be taking a shower and I'll just turn it to cold really quick, and the body's natural response is like, oh, hello, that's cold. Turn it back the other way. But I don't do it. And I don't let myself do it. And then it's like, oh, as long as I don't like react to it, then I'm able to stay in control of, it's cold, no big deal. And then recently I started doing cold plunges in the water in Destin, and it's pretty cold. But not as cold as it could be. And what I've found out is that due to all the work that I've done, I can just get in it and the heart doesn't race. And I don't really feel that it's cold. I started out at 3 minutes and I've stayed there. But it was like, wow, I wasn't doing anything other than not reacting to, they say it's supposed to be cold. I mean, it is winter. It's only 40 out. And I don't know how cold the water is. But of course I attribute it to doing all the work that I've done. And it's not like it just happens, but I do feel like I have that support energetically that with awareness, it helps.
If you've heard the book Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning.
Yeah, I've heard about that one.
You know, I'm sure you have. I'm off in my own little mind land here that you know, in the most horrific of circumstance and conditions, that somehow this idea of being in control, being peaceful in the midst of adversity, major adversity, or as you know, you could call cold water adversity. You know, in other words, how is it that you can, with calm and strength and stability, move forward with peace amidst any circumstances that life might throw at you?
Well,
That's the ultimate question, isn't it?
it is. It is.
Yeah.
And I can't speak for Victor, but for me, it's again the work that I've done, and I can feel the support of the source that again is within me. It's outside of me at all times, and it almost seems like the more challenging the situation that comes at me these days, the more I actually feel source's support and bliss. It's almost like, hey, I got you right now. Just don't react. Be right here. Be right here. And so in the challenging moments, that's what I do. I put my attention here, and I can feel the love, the peace, bliss, and it's basically dissolves. It dissolves the mind.
Is it like a choice?
It is a choice.
An awareness that you then make a choice?
Yeah, because in any situation, I can respond or I can react. And so if I react, it creates a chemical reaction in my body that I can feel. And so just choosing not to react and even not to respond in certain situations. So even if it is from a place of love, sometimes the best thing to do is just be quiet. And it's a lot easier when, you know, I remember like hearing this before, you know, like, because this is what everybody teaches, you know, don't react, just chill. And, but, I had such a temper and, you know, so much anger. And until I started, you know, they call it witness consciousness, be the witness. But I would try to do it without landing here, and it got me nowhere. And so when I started to land here, it dissolved my mind, and it made it a lot easier not to, you know, react to whatever's happening around me.
Right. Or whatever you're recalling. You could recall something and have the same reaction over and over and over again, right? This is fascinating. This pursuit, the work that you've done, it's not uncommon. Matter of fact, I think it's absolutely awesome that the work that you do when you get a grasp on something oftentimes segues into how you can take that knowledge, that process of discovery, et cetera, and put it out there for the world to help others in a place of that kind of transition or that kind of seeking. Talk to me about the retreats that you are now, I don't want to say a host of, that sounds the wrong word, that you teach, that you lead, that help people that are looking for more peace, looking for more control. That's how I would put it, but maybe there's a better titling of it that you can throw at me.
It's actually a letting go of the control, but yeah, in a way it is. It's yeah, I guess it could be perceived either way. But yeah, the happiness retreats that I'm doing are 7-day all women retreats, and it is a retreat that basically takes the ladies through clarifying a goal and then releasing, purifying the heart and the mind so that they can move forward from a place that basically keeps them in the present moment moving forward, and that will help them to achieve the goal. And ideally, the goal is to be happy. And I know that sounds very vague, but if we can achieve that happiness that comes from within, it holds us in a place of peace, love, and joy. And then anything's achievable, and nothing can really faze us. The ups and downs of life will just come and go.
In aviation, there's two different definitions of speed. There's ground speed, there's airspeed. There's two measures of speed. You can be going very, very fast and have all kinds of airspeed, but not really going across the ground very fast at all. Why am I saying this? I'm thinking of life. I'm thinking of life, that where you get and what you accomplish can be done with grind and just gritted out determination, or it seems as though it can be done in peace. I've always admired those that somehow move in the direction that their life moves, but they never feel rushed. They never feel on edge. They never feel stressed, or they never appear that way. And I'm like, what in the hell? Because that hasn't been my experience. I get very intense. I get very on point. Certain times it's best to just sort of stay out of the way. I'm focused and I've got my head down. Don't comment on that, Jorge. Right? But I think there's a better way, and I've witnessed it, where some of the people I admire most, their achievement is off the chart, but in really close inspection of watching them, their countenance is peaceful. And to me, that's something very enviable. It also seems that because they don't stress and they're not just, intense and stressed all the time, that their health looks a lot better. I think stress probably takes a toll. It has to. And so I really admire those that look at that and go, hey, I want to move toward a better me looking more like that. And so I want to join that club.
Well, you do it.
Yeah.
You do a damn good job
It's
presenting that, because that's how I was just thinking yesterday. I was like, he always seems so cool, calm, and collected.
Well, I don't feel that way. It may look that way sometimes, but the ability to really feel at peace, I think is something that is so enviable and worthy of the work. I keep hearing that phrase, the work. I've done the work. I've it seems like lately, everybody that I really am drawn to and admire, they talk about the work. And I'm like, all I've done since I was 16 is work. What do you mean? I know how to work. But no, it's not that kind of work, It's a different kind of work, working on yourself and to discover yourself, to be your best self. And I think the word self gets in the way, because I always think selfish. But I've been reminded lately that loving anyone else or doing anything for anyone else starts with loving yourself first. I've been reminded of that. Smart people have told me that. And so this is all like new.
You can think of selfish with a capital S. And for me, it took being completely selfish to become completely selfless. And it looked like I was living a very selfish life. And really, I was just getting my shit together, burning off the karma through exercising and then processing and doing workshops. And it doesn't take as much as it sounds like it does these days. It's very easy. Everybody's waking up. People can feel this love pretty easily. But then it's staying in alignment with it through our actions that keep us connected and allow that to grow into embodiment of the energy in every moment. Like a lot of people teach that the love will come and go, and I experienced that for years because I wasn't living in alignment. My actions weren't matching this unconditional loving value, which is my highest value, unconditional love, because that is source. Unconditionality. It doesn't mean that we don't have boundaries and that we don't have preferences, but it does mean that we live in alignment with that as much as possible. And of course, energy work helps because otherwise it's just hard as hell and it's just like a mental concept.
So the doing, the disciplines surrounding that are what keep it real, keep it in alignment.
Yeah, that's integration. It becomes just who you are.
There's a bunch of us last night after a big day at the hangar. There's like, okay, we're going to go get something to eat. And I asked one guy, hey, are you going to go? Everybody's going to go up here to get something to eat. And very calmly, with just a lot of peace, because he's one of those type, he just said, no, that particular restaurant doesn't have anything that I eat, and so I won't be joining you tonight. Why is that not just so simple to take in and deal with me? I almost look at it as an excuse. It's like, oh, come on, suck it up. Have this just one night. It's like, it doesn't seem, but the other side of me is like the disciplines that this is what I do to be my best self and what I don't do. And I think I understand that in a lot of areas, like time management and productivity and what wastes your time, what doesn't add up. But this is almost a philosophical look at the same thing that challenges me even more, I think, because it's perhaps more difficult to measure. Did you or didn't you? It's like only sometimes, right?
Yeah, it's funny. There's a saying, you've all heard it. It's, he knows when you are sleeping. He knows when you are awake. He knows if you've been bad or good. So be good for goodness sake. So it's this internal source that we have that is keeping the barometer, keeping score of everything that we do. So if we do something that is out of integrity, thinking that no one's going to know, our source knows, the source inside of us knows. And that's where the chemical reaction happens that brings us out of alignment, that will weigh us down with more baggage and keep us in the lower vibration.
This is fascinating. I have a hope in this podcast. I don't know. It's a hope that, and yet it's a choice. So I'm coming at it that way, that people will want to follow up with you. They'll want to ask questions. They'll want to say, okay, I want to talk more about this or that they've been brought up. And I don't know that there's an avenue to do that, but if there is, now would be the time to say that. And if there is, how do they do that best with you?
Google knows where I'm at.
Google, yeah. Yeah. So just Google your name and it will find you. Yeah. Yeah. Do you have all those switches on your phone checked so it can actually find you?
Oh, no, I don't.
So how does Google know?
Not in that respect. Not location.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So is that what you meant?
Yeah. Well, so just
I don't have tracking on.
just Google Terra.
You can't find me instantly.
and the reason I'm sort of stepping around this versus just like, here's your number and website, is that you're not easy to run down. But I think that's kind of on purpose. You put your messages out there when you want to be found, and then it seems that there's times you don't want to be found.
No, not necessarily.
No? Okay. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Other people answer the phone.
Wait, I answer my phone.
So how does somebody connect? Be practical about it. Just Google your name?
Yeah, Google my name.
Okay.
You can find me on Facebook or my direct number.
Perfect.
415-942-4556.
There you go. Okay. You got it. I have a lot of mental notes because this is a very challenging topic. It's like brand new. It's like my first day on the job. There's been a few things that have fallen under this bucket that I thought, hey, listen, for whatever reason, I've never done this. I've never really pursued these things, and I don't see a downside. As a matter of fact, I see huge upsides intuitively. And so I'm looking forward to just pursuing this topic intently. I feel like it is something that perhaps it's just the changes that I can definitely see in people that I've known real well that all have a similar quest. And I think I've already told you that at the Power Player Alumni coming up later this year, I have a panel in mind because it's several of you who have really leaned into this kind of work on yourself. And I can just visibly see the difference in people. And I thought, what a worthy panel to be up in front of all power players and just talk about this evolution that's happened. And so I'm looking forward to that. Yeah.
Excellent.
Coming attractions. Thank you, Tara Camp, for being here.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you for catching a flight all the way from places unknown that we don't talk about where you actually live.
I live in Florida.
Right, just not where...
right next to the beach.
Just not where Saturn went through lately, that's for sure.
Just trying to get you out of your comfort zone, Greg.
I need it. And and for those listening, I truly appreciate you tuning in to this podcast every week. It means a lot, or I should say every 2 weeks. Yeah, it means a lot. And the feedback that we're getting and the questions and things are awesome. So keep it coming, and thanks for your attention. Until next time, thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Okay. We did it. Yay.